kick. Ryan can't believe it. Taken short by Gunn. Here's Patterson. He wants the one down the outside by Gannon Doak. He'll take over here. Ran into Douglas Costa. Santos, excuse me. McLean from range. Casemiro flung himself at it. Now it's Guimaraes battling with Ferguson. Casemiro tries to just ping it out to the right hand side. Danilo had got forward, but it was too far behind the fullback. In by Robertson to McGinn. McTominay spotted the runner Shankland. Marquinhos read it though. Here's Guimaraes. Costa. Santos. Vinicius Junior. Paquetá. Guimaraes back to Marquinhos on the centre spot. Lucas Paquetá down the outside. Douglas Santos. Angle of the penalty area is Vinicius Junior. Guimaraes, Paquetá. Gabriel. Marquinhos. Gabriel. Lucas Paquetá. Vinicius Junior turns on the corner of the penalty area. Scotland surround him. And it's tiny defending from Nathan Patterson. Scotland need to try and play themselves out. Ben Gannon Doak. Hendry has to be careful. He's already had a warning and a reprieve, and Angus Gunn will move it on. Here is Andy Robertson into the middle of the park. Scott McTominay. One back by Ryan. Invited the challenge to McTominay. Now Guimaraes. Ran into Ferguson. Ryan, edge of the box, and again. That one's wide of Angus Gunn's goal. He's never heading on target. Robertson settles to the throw into McKenna. Back to the Scotland captain. Now Scott McKenna again. Launches a high diagonal out to Ben Gannon Doak. Good first touch in front of Douglas Santos, but he was just tight enough to Gannon Doak to win it back. Scotland win it back themselves. Is Ferguson. Laid off by Shankland. McLean. Here's Robertson left hand side. Met by Ryan. McLean. High ball. He's overhit the cross. And a bounce along the byline and eventually roll out a play for a goal kick. Oh, I see. Gabriel. Casemiro. Made off to Alisson. Now Marquinhos. You can see the criticism that has been levelled at Brazil. There's Ryan. Back to Marquinhos, just inside the Brazil half, forward. Finds Lucas Paquetá floating around in half pockets of space in the central position. Casemiro now. Danilo. Marquinhos. Paquetá. Searching ball into the Scotland penalty area, smart from Andy Robertson, just kicked up in front of him but can still nod his header back to Angus Gunn. Here's Ferguson at the base of midfield for Scotland, towards the right hand side for Ben Gannon-Doak. Slows the ball down, eventually lays it off to Nathan Patterson. Patterson felt it was fouled by Lucas Paquetá. It's been another goal in Atlanta, and it's an equaliser for Morocco. Achraf Hakimi bundling home the rebound. One apiece. Another game in this group. Guimaraes, right of centre, 10 yards inside Scotland's half, now with Marquinhos back in that centre circle. Douglas Santos, Casemiro, space for Cunha, tries to curl one. Gunn was worried for a moment. Went scampering across to his left, Angus Gunn. He just realised his last minute that's going wide. McKenna, Paquetá. Well, watched by Hendry with Vinicius Junior looking to run onto it over his shoulder. Patterson for Ferguson. Gannon-Doak got there before Douglas Santos, but the Brazil left back gets it back. Santos on the left hand side. Vinicius Junior goes to ground, being waved back to his feet by the referee. Wants a free kick. So well with Ben Gannon-Doak as well. Combustible figure is Vinicius Junior. Paquetá. Title winner in Russia with Zenit St. Petersburg, Douglas Santos. Close to switching his international footballing allegiance to Russia in March of last year, but stopped the naturalisation at the final moment after being given a surprise lifeline on Brazil's provisional qualifying list. Would you believe it, Haiti have restored their lead, and what a goal it is from a long way out. Fabulous strike from Isidore. Wilson Isidore with an absolute rocket into the top corner has made it Morocco 1, Haiti 2. Casemiro towards the edge of the Scotland box. Was intended for Guimaraes. Here's Ryan. Vinicius Junior chases it. There's the tuck back. It's cleared off the line. It's Nathan Patterson to deny Matheus Cunha. Vinicius Junior just ticks the tempo a little bit higher. Links up with Ryan on the right hand side. They bypass Robertson. Cunha stretched, got there in front of Jack Hendry. And a combination of Ferguson and Patterson are there on the line to make sure it doesn't beat Angus Gunn. Guimaraes takes the corner, pulls it back into midfield. Paquetá with the outside of his left boot. Gunn will claim. Bowled out to Robertson. Here's McTominay. Ferguson. That's Lewis Ferguson. Kenny McLean. McKenna. Ferguson. Andy Robertson. Gunn. Here's Jack Hendry. Nathan Patterson. John McGinn. Ferguson. McKenna. Keeping the ball well here, Scotland, but not doing too much with it. Maybe they will now with Robertson in an advanced position. Steps inside. McLean. Here's John McGinn. So too much to Casemiro. Ferguson pings it in towards Shankland. Shankland wide. Bit of space on the left-hand side. Gannon Doak onto his right. Tried to take it on. Might emerge for him. Challenge from Marquinhos by Casemiro. Ball was won though. No appeals from the Scotland players. We moved into 6 minutes of added time at the end of this first half. Shankland again on the edge of the penalty area. Bounces up off Casemiro. Half-hearted appeals for a handball. Almost got a huge slice of luck there, Ben Gannon Doak. Well, what a game in Atlanta. Morocco have equalised again. This is Vinicius Junior. It's fouled by Nathan Patterson. Couple of grabs of the sleeve in front of the referee from the Everton fullback. Guimaraes. Casemiro. Paquetá. Casemiro. Gabriel. Casemiro. Marquinhos. Ryan linked up with Guimaraes, gave it back to him. It's Guimaraes again towards the back post. Vinicius Junior knocks that one home. And this time it surely will stand. Angus Gunn's just got caught under the flight of it. He's beaten Nathan Patterson in the air as well. Steve Clarke can just watch on and scratch his beard. Scotland couldn't clear their lines. Patterson dropped with Vinicius Junior. If he steps out, Vinicius Junior's offside. Angus Gunn has tried to come to meet it, realised he's misjudged the flight, rather flaps at it, and again it's a free goal for Vinicius Junior. He's had the ball in the back of the net 3 times tonight now, just the 2 have stood. And they have to be careful. McGinn felled on his way forward. Challenge from Danilo. Well, they've been architects of their own downfall, Scotland. It'll be a Robertson delivery into the final minutes of added time. Robertson. Looks to Ferguson. Edge of the box. Gannon Doak took it on. Ricochets away over a Brazilian ankle. Poked forward towards Vinicius Jr. Forward by Patterson. Juggled by Guimaraes. Back heel from Vinicius. Paquetá forward. Brilliant from Ryan! And Gunn prevents the third. Spread himself brilliantly there, Angus Gunn. Sensational first touch from Ryan. Takes Robertson out of the game. Tries to go low. Ryan, top class goalkeeping for the man at Nottingham Forest. Paquetá with a delivery, high swinging ball towards the back post. Drops on the edge of the penalty area, lashed in there by Douglas Santos. Goes over the byline. Will they have time for one more corner? No, they won't. Cesar Ramos blows the whistle for half-time. The players head towards the corner where the tunnel is situated. It's been the tale of Vinicius Jr. Capitalised on an awful mistake by Scott McKenna initially. Felt he'd done the same again from Jack Hendry. That one was scrubbed out on a VAR review. Maybe some questions to be asked about Angus Gunn's positioning for the one that eventually would count in added time at the end of the first half. Scotland in perilous territory here. They need to be careful. And the big half-time team talk from Steve Clarke need to show some more threat in the second half. Otherwise they will be heading home, barring something quite remarkable. Half-time in Miami. It's, as you may have expected, it's Scotland who trail. Brazil, all that being said, have not been at their best. We'll see what happens in the second half of this one in 15 minutes' time. Join us then, but at half-time it's Scotland 0, Brazil 2. Welcome back to our unofficial studio-based commentary of this Group C clash, the final Group C clash for both of these two teams in Miami between Scotland and Brazil. Scotland at the moment as the stand in Atlanta, 2-2 between Morocco and Haiti, and currently trailing Brazil by 2-0. Leaving themselves very little margin for error when it comes to trying to reach the round of 32 as one of the best placed third place finishers in the group stage of this 48 team tournament. It's been a big half time, maybe the final half time of this tournament for Steve Clarke and his side, and they're going to make a change at the break. Kieran Tierney is stripped off and ready to come on. Just waiting for the fourth official to show the number. It's Andy Robertson who's going to go off. And on comes Tierney. They'll swap halves. Scotland now attacking the end where the majority of their support is located. If you are just joining us for the second half, Vinicius Junior had the ball in the back of the net 3 times. The first capitalising on a horrible mistake from Scotland defender Scott McKenna. The second was a similar position, Jack Hendry. Look, to be dispossessed by Vinicius Junior, only for that goal to be struck off on a VAR review. But just in the closing stages of that first half in added time, Vinicius Junior rose to nod home a cross from Bruno Guimaraes. Angus Gunn sucked underneath the fly to the ball. Leaves us here where we are at the start of this second half. Scotland 0, Brazil 2. As it's pumped downfield by Angus Gunn, looking for Shankland, nodded down. Here's John McGinn of Aston Villa. There's Tierney. McGinn. Now wearing the captain's armband, the Aston Villa man. Lifted the Europa League trophy with Aston Villa in this last month. Lewis Ferguson tries to move it quicker. Gives it away. That'll be a throw-in on the left-hand side for Brazil. We're only through their lineup. It's Alisson in goal, the back four of Douglas Santos at left-back, Gabriel Marquinhos, the 2 centre-halves, and Danilo on the right-hand side. Casemiro partners Bruno Guimaraes, 2 assists this evening for the Newcastle United midfielder in the heart of midfield. Cunha, Paquetá and Ryan supporting Vinicius Junior, but it's a very fluid front four for Brazil, as it so often is. For Scotland, it's now Angus Gunn in goal with Tierney at left back, Patterson at right back, Hendry and McKenna the 2 centre backs, Ferguson, McLean, Gannon, Doak, Tomine in there as well, John McGinn as well, Lawrence Shankland, the target man, the man leading the line, the furthest forward at least. Scotland throwing out on the far side. Patterson gets it in quickly to Scott McTominay. It's bounced up in front of the Napoli midfielder, but he's made the most of it. And there's Ferguson. Patterson, Ferguson, McTominay, Ferguson again. Shankland lays it off. Ben Gannon Doak finds a little bit of space around the Brazilian defenders. There are 4 of them to try and beat, though, and they close the door on him. Back to Alisson. Shankland trying to close down Douglas Santos, and clearance was off balance from Gabriel, will be a throw-in, quickly taken by Patterson. Hendry to Scott McKenna. Down the left for Tierney. Hendry. Lewis Ferguson. Ben Gannon Doak. Inside to Ferguson, just on the edge of the penalty area. Kenny McLean will lay that off. Jack Hendry for Scott McKenna. Hendry. Back to Gunn. Towards McTominay, can't take it down, Gabriel will clear it. Ferguson will Take that towering ball down on his chest on the halfway line. Now Kenny McLean just outside the centre circle. Lewis Ferguson, McTominay, Cannon Doak, Ferguson, Hendry, McKenna, Tierney, McGinn, Tierney in a crossing position. Decent cross, there's the header. An effort on target from Scott McTominay. Alisson forced to work for the first time. It was straight at him, but he held on to it. That's what Kieran Tierney's been brought on to do. Move the ball much quicker there. Either side of Alisson, and Scotland might well have reduced the deficit. Here was the spare man in there, Scott McTominay. Good movement from Lawrence Shankland to take Gabriel away. He's just been put off enough there by Douglas Santos. Heads in hands in the Scotland fan areas. Gabriel, Santos, Gabriel across to Marquinhos. Marquinhos for Gabriel. Marquinhos looks for a ball over the top for Vinicius Junior. It's good from Hendry. Now Tierney forward. McGinn spins on it on halfway. Has to go back again to Ferguson. McLean. Shankland in the centre circle. Hendry. McTominay. Patterson. That's for the early ball into Shankland. It's not a terrible delivery from Nathan Patterson. Pops out the other side for Danilo. It's Cunha being forced backwards. Marquinhos puts his foot through it. Header one on halfway. Scott McKenna towering over Ryan. They can't keep it, Scotland. And here's Lucas Paquetá. Runners in front of them. One of them, Vinicius Junior. Peeling off of Jack Hendry. Vinicius Junior can't beat Angus Gunn. Saves with his leg. And then holds on to it as it loops up. That's one pass through the middle. It's absolutely exposed the Scotland back line. McGinn. Tierney. Ferguson in midfield. Tierney. Should have shift out to Ben Gannon Doak. It's off Douglas Santos's head. McTominay lent it to McLean. Now it's with Scott McKenna on halfway in the centre circle. Hendry. McTominay. Patterson, Shankland, they'll be back heel. Patterson goes to ground in the penalty area. Shouts for a penalty waved away by the referee. Shades of Morocco last time out for Scotland. It didn't look like a penalty on first viewing. We'll have a look at the replay when we get a chance, but it seems like he was crowded out there, Nathan Patterson. Marquinhos, Gabriel. They've had a look and they've confirmed the referee's decision not to give that. Just didn't feel like a penalty in real time. There's Danilo. Bruno Guimaraes. Ryan. Danilo. Marquinhos. Paquetá. Douglas Santos, left-hand side. Vinicius Junior. It's back from Casemiro to Marquinhos, and now Danilo again. Everyone in blue behind the ball. Vinicius Junior from a long way out, straight at gun. Just pat it down. Bowled out to Hendry. Patterson for Ferguson. Here's Hendry again. Square to McKenna to his left. Now Kieran Tierney. Ferguson. Patterson. Ferguson. Trying to inch their way forward here, Scotland. McTominay. Here's Lewis Ferguson. Scott McKenna. Kenny McLean finds McGinn. To the left for Tierney. Ferguson to Hendry. There's Patterson. Shankland tries to turn it around the corner. That one looked more like a penalty. Ferguson bundled to ground by Gabriel. That is a poor challenge by Nathan Patterson. It was Kenny McLean bursting forward. It's clumsy from Gabriel. There's certainly contact. I think Kenny McLean just needs to try and get his shot away there. Marquinhos to Danilo. Ryan. They will give and go with Guimaraes. Tierney there first. Throw in for Brazil. And by Danilo. Marquinhos. Paqueta. Vinicius Junior. Guimaraes lets it run. Angascan will pounce on that as Vinicius Junior tried to chase after his own pass. Been sharp in moments, Gunn. Ferguson. Ben Gannon Doak. Qatar steps across his path, and that will be a foul on the Brazilian. Marquinhos. Gabriel. Alisson to the retreating Guimaraes. The link into midfield. Cunha lays it off. Here is Danilo. Now Ryan off the right hand side. Back to Danilo. Into Casemiro. Qatar. Guimaraes down the outside, goes Danilo. He's not going to catch up with the ball. He's the pass master extraordinaire, Bruno Guimaraes, the Newcastle United midfielder. Guimaraes over the top. Ryan tucks it back. Here's Cunha. It's off McKenna's chest. Drops to Paquetá. Sorts his feet out. The right-footed effort is wide of the target. Angus Gunn knew where that was going. One from Gunn. Shanklin tries to take it down. Casemiro goes to ground. No foul, says Ramos. We will now for the challenge on Lucas Paquetá. There's Gabriel. Danilo. Attempted ball in behind. Guimaraes is strong. Guimaraes sorts his feet out. Tries to lay it off for Cunha. It's a third for Brazil. Matheus Cunha. Finishes off a wonderful move from Brazil. It's that man again. Brilliant play from Bruno Guimaraes. Scotland are hoping for the foul on Scott McKenna. It's beautiful composure from Bruno Guimaraes to hold the ball up, draw the defenders across and have the presence of mind to just slide it to his right where Matheus Cunha is arriving. Angus Gunn's attention taken by Guimaraes, which opens up the angle for Cunha. Scotland on the brink of an exit of the tournament. Tierney, little give and go. Tierney low into the penalty area. That's the ill-judged challenge from Danilo. Will be a free kick. The yellow is out for Danilo. It's right on the line. Really good understanding between Kieran Tierney and John McGinn. Oh, I'm not so sure. That might be a penalty, you know. Could just be outside the box. It's such an ill-advised challenge for Danilo, especially with Brazil in such a strong position. Ferguson with the free kick, pushed away by Alisson. Tips it round for the corner, always against Lewis Ferguson was the angle, but he tried to... There's a little deflection on the way through, which makes it slightly more difficult for Alisson. John McGinn to deliver. Right towards the back post. Ferguson was arriving. Will drop here to Tierney. Tierney, little drop of the shoulder, gets it towards the back post. There's McTominay! Another save from Alisson. This one down low to his right. Given away midfield, Vinicius Junior's a mile offside. It's Patterson. McTominay, right hand side. Looks for Gannon Doak. Can he get there? No, he can't. Casemiro closes the door. Brazil preparing for a double change. Arsenal's Gabriel Martinelli is going to replace Lucas Paquetá. Casemiro's also coming off. And it's the evergreen Fabinho. Now of Al Ittihad, the former Liverpool player. Comes on to try and add some physicality in midfield. McKenna. McGinn. Ferguson. McLean. Wide to Tierney. Tierney on the left hand side. Looks for the cross. Shackman tries to get on the end of it. There was a deflection that took this thing out of it. That's very calmly dealt with by Ryan. It's Fabinho in the centre circle. Marquinhos. Run away from Guimaraes as it crosses the touchline on the near side. That's a signal for the second half hydration break. This will be a big chat from Steve Clarke when they make their way over. "22 minutes to salvage their position. -3 goal difference might still just keep Scotland in the tournament. But it's a tough risk-reward question. Do you go for a goal to try and reduce that deficit as the bagpipes launch into life? Might just be the inspiration they need here, Scotland. But Brazil, as it stands, will be winning the group. All the talk about their sluggish start. And they've answered their critics against Morocco. In fact, pretty straightforward win over Haiti, but they never seem to come out of second gear. The same could probably be said about tonight, you know. And you wonder what happens when Brazil come up against a side with a bit more pedigree in their ranks. There have been chances for Scotland. Scott McTominay with a couple of headers. There were some in the ground that thought it had beaten Alisson. Travelling contingent of Scotland supporters, the Tartan Army, doing their best to suck the ball into the back of the net. The Brazilians in this stadium outnumber them by a factor of almost 10-1. We start with a throw in inside the Scotland half of the pitch. "20 minutes to play." Kieran Tierney in towards John McGinn. Danilo was climbing, according to the referee. McGinn. Tierney. McKenna. McLean. McGinn looking for Shankland. Cut out by Gabriel. In by Tierney again with the throw. Kenny McLean. Down the line for Kieran Tierney to chase. He's going to get there ahead of Danilo. Not half decent ball. Shankland! He's scooped over by McTominay. Well, it's going to be an almighty roll from around this stadium. Neymar is being given his final instructions. He will be introduced very shortly. Gabriel. Alisson. Fabinho. Alisson. As things stand, Scotland are 6th in the third place rankings. The teams below them as well with a game to play. Martinelli can't find Vinicius Junior. Now McTominay to try and carry it away for Scotland. McGinn. Buys himself a bit of time. Now with Kenny McLean. McGinn. McLean. Tierney. Ferguson. McLean. Held up by McGinn. Now Kieran Tierney. Drives at Danilo. And gets the touch off Ryan to win the corner. Set pieces have provided encouragement for Scotland. If not the goal they've been looking for. Ferguson's corner, pushed away by Allison. Far enough away as well. Recycled by Patterson. Tierney from deep towards the back post. Header is by Santos. Back in it across from McGinn. McLean's header tucked behind by Fabinho. Ferguson on set piece duties again from this near side. Packing them into the 6-yard box of Scotland. Ferguson. Headed towards goal. It was always moving away from goal. Well met by Lawrence Shankland. And now the chance for Neymar to get on. And he's going to replace Mateus Cunha. Back in the squad for the first time since October 2023. The 34-year-old jogs on for his 4th appearance at these magnificent tournaments. It's cap 129 for Neymar. On the occasion of his 3rd cap, he scored 2 against Scotland at the Emirates in London. Morocco lead for the first time. They've tried twice in that game. Finished 3-2 in Atlanta. It's Guimaraes. Neymar. Can't force it through to Vinicius Junior. McGinn. Wiped out. Danilo. Be careful, Danilo. He is on a yellow card. Gunn. Straight to Danilo. And Marquinhos. Fabinho. Marquinhos. Danilo. Fabinho. Marquinhos. Gabriel. Forward for Douglas Santos. Lays it off to Neymar. Clever reverse pass to Vinicius Junior. Left edge of the penalty area. Vinicius Junior for his hat-trick. Saved at the near post by Angus Gunn. It's going to be Neymar to take it. And swinger. Up to Ryan. And he caught McGinn. He's trying to take it down. By Tierney to Gunn, stands it up down the left hand side, but he's giving it straight to Guimaraes. Now Fabinho, Danilo, Fabinho, Gabriel, Fabinho, Gabriel. Ryan, Neymar, Guimaraes. Free kick goes Scotland's way on the edge of the penalty area. McTominay. Patterson, Ferguson. Fabinho. Ryan. Runners around him. Finds Danilo low across the face of goal. And Vinicius Junior was there. And it's ever so slightly wide. Changes for Scotland. Anthony Ralston and Ryan Christie for the two men waiting to come on. Nathan Patterson's going to come off. As has Ben Gannon-Doe. He was billed as the potential fear maker. Gannon-Doe. Changes two for Brazil. Hendrick's going to be coming on. Off goes Douglas Santos and Ryan. Alexandro on. And Hendrick too, as we just mentioned. Tierney wins the header. Ferguson. Here's McLean. And his ankle's taken away from him by Fabinho. A yellow card brandished towards the former Liverpool man. Good work from Kenny McLean. Just weaved his way through the Brazil midfield. Probably knew what he was doing there, Fabinho. Hence the quick booking. Well, statistics tell us that a goal for Scotland at this point, if they can keep the margin down to 2, would give them around a 30% chance boost. Ferguson's free kick to McGinn. Christie, a little pirouette on the turn. Won't really settle for him. Back with Tierney. Switch of play to the far side, taken down by John McGinn. Brilliant ball from Kieran Tierney. McGinn, right-footed ball towards the near post. McTominay holds it up. Surrounded by Brazil shirts. Pokes it free. Here's McGinn, shifted onto his left. Now down the outside. McGinn twisting, turning. Christie. High towards the back post. There is Shankland. Nods it down. Kieran Tierney was waiting. He felt he was caught there. Goes to ground in the penalty area. It's Hendrick that carries it free. Referee was well placed though. Fabinho. For Martinelli. Fabinho. Marquinhos. Neymar. Fabinho. Neymar. Marquinhos. Danilo. Marquinhos. Gabriel. Down the left for Vinicius Junior. Tracked by Christie. Martinelli. Danilo. Fabinho. Gabriel. Vinicius Junior running at Ralston. And Christie's in the way. It will be a Brazil corner. Neymar over the corner. Driven towards the near post and flashed over his own crossbar by Lawrence Shanklin. Neymar. And the volley was Gabriel. There were Scottish bodies in the way. Scott McKenna in the way. Thrown to Brazil. Danilo. Into Guimaraes. Marquinhos. Gabriel. Alexandro. There's Neymar. Teasing. Vinicius Junior. Led off by Martinelli. Marquinhos. Gabriel. Vinicius Junior. There's Neymar out on the left-hand side. Gabriel. Marquinhos. Will work down the right this time. Endrick. And the foul is on Endrick. Steve Clark preparing to make his final change here. Just waiting for the moment to bring on the 19-year-old Finlay Curtis. Here's Endrick. And Fabinho. Out to the left-hand side for Vinicius Junior. Bounces off Ralston. Trying to set it through for Neymar. Christie. McGinn. And collision off the ball between Guimaraes and McLean. Here's Ryan Christie. Ferguson. Christie. Oh, it's Ferguson. Ferguson steps forward. Finds McGinn left-hand side now. Options in the box to aim for. This one towards the back post. Ralston was there. Snatched at the chance. Scuffed into the ground. Che Adams is also ready to come on. Neymar's tracked down by Ryan Christie. It was Ralston caught out of position though. To the 90th minute in Miami. There's Neymar. Flat delivery. Away by Shankland. Back to Neymar, left-hand side. Little drop of the shoulder. Neymar. Gobbled up by Gunn. Morocco have scored a fourth. They'll finish in second place in Group C. Strasbourg's Yassine has scored the fourth for Morocco to make it 4-2 for the North Africans, who trailed twice this evening. Fabinho. Shankland. Fouled by Martinelli. Steve Clark wants to get his reinforcements on. Well, that was Lawrence Shankland's last act. He'll walk over the touchline. As will John McGinn. On comes Findlay Curtis and Che Adams. Lewis Ferguson standing over the ball, 35 yards from goal, very central position. We're into 6 minutes of added time. Ferguson towards the back post, aimed at Tierney. Off Danilo. Launched into the penalty area by Tierney. That drops kindly for Neymar, who's found Vinicius Junior. It's really good positioning by Ralston, just to make sure that didn't find any of the yellow shirts streaking forward. Fabinho to Danilo. Marquinhos. Looks down the right hand side. Endrick might well keep this in play. Unable to do so in the end. Ferguson. Here comes Findlay Curtis. Overran it. Danilo was in the way. Now here's Guimaraes, finds Neymar. So Fabinho. Carried forward by Alexandro. Guimaraes. Hendrick. Danilo. Martinelli. Fabinho on the half turn. Will find Guimaraes looking for Neymar. All the way through to Gunn. gun, chested down by Marquinhos. Here's Gabriel. Back to Marquinhos. By Endrick. Martinelli. He's had his pocket picked by Ferguson, was being held back by Gabriel Martinelli. That will be a free kick for Scotland. May have one chance here. 90 seconds or so remaining in the game. Set pieces have looked their most likely route to something approaching salvation. Ferguson. It's off a Brazilian head, out of play for a corner. Ferguson. Allison punches. Might drop to Ralston. Keeps things going into the byline. McTominay was there! And Allison holds on to it. That was the chance. And Brazil surging forward on the counter-attack. It's Vinicius Junior hunting a hat-trick. Neymar. Vinicius Junior. That was blocked by Finlay Curtis. Vinicius Junior. Guimarães. Vinicius Junior. Crowded out. Ferguson won it back. Scotland with the free kick. We've played the 6 minutes of allotted added time. May go a little bit further because of the subs. No more time. Cesar Ramos blows the whistle for full time. Brazil will go cruising through to the knockout stages as group winners. 2 wins and a draw. Scotland, though, will have an agonising wait. They will return back to their training camp in Charlotte, North Carolina, up the eastern seaboard, and wait for a few days to find out whether they've done enough to make it through to the round of 32 as one of the best performing third place finishers. They've been architects of their own downfall tonight, though. The mistake from Scott McKenna. Angus Gunn as well, getting sucked under the flight of the ball. It could have been so different. Also could have been different had Vinicius Junior taken a few of the chances that were handed to him. It's been a tough evening for Scotland. A confidence-boosting one for Brazil, but it's another game that they haven't really had to step out of second gear in. Scotland will think and hope and cross their fingers and hope the football gods smile on them as the groups progress. Group D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, all still to play their final group games. Currently, as it stands, Scotland are a point ahead of Cape Verde, who have played 2. Cape Verde, Belgium, Czech Republic, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ecuador and Senegal, still trailing Scotland in that third place rankings. A point for Cape Verde, a point for Belgium, and Scotland will be pushed out of the third place positions. Wins for Czech Republic, DR Congo or Ecuador. We'd see something similar happen. embraces between Andy Robertson and Alisson on other sides tonight, but on the same side for such a long time with Liverpool. It's going to be a tense few days for Scotland, but Brazil are group winners in Group C. Whether they have enough to go all the way this time remains to be seen. Whether Scotland have enough to go to the next stage of this tournament is the real question that is left unanswered this evening. The calculators will be out. All those Tartan Army supporters who have enjoyed their time at this tournament to the full will be hoping they can extend this little trip, this holiday, this vacation. Will the football gods be smiling on them? And will this be the night that Scotland's tournament comes to an end? We'll find out in the coming days. Full time, a professional, emphatic win for Brazil. A nervy couple of days ahead for Scotland. It's finished. Brazil 3, Scotland 0.